I was standing just out of sight, in the dark part of the garden near the pavilion. I watched Lena, my fiancée, talking quietly with Kai, my best friend. It was exactly like it happened before, in my last life. The moon was out, and I could see it shine on the diamond bracelet she wore. I'd given her that bracelet when we got engaged. "Only 2 more months until I get his family's money," she said to Kai. Her fingers ran down his arm. "Then we can stop pretending." It hurt just as much as the first time, a sharp pain in my gut. But this time I didn't gasp. Last time they heard me. They turned around and made up a story full of lies, and I was stupid enough to believe them. Not now. I looked at my watch. 10:37 p.m., right on time. The small camera I'd secretly put in the trellis was recording everything. This second chance, being reborn, was what I'd wished for when I was dying. A chance to change how things turned out, to stop them from ruining me. Lena's parents' big house was full of people from rich families in Shanghai. The same faces, the same fake smiles, the same glasses of champagne being held up for toasts. It was the same party. I smiled and shook hands, taking congratulations that felt hollow. Knowing what I knew felt heavy, like the sticky air. Lena held on to my arm, her grip tight. Her perfume was too strong. "He's my perfect match," she told everyone she introduced me to, putting on a big show of being happy. My sister, May, was there, eating small food and looking between me and Lena with narrowed eyes. She seemed suspicious. In my last life, May was close to Lena and helped her, even if she didn't know the whole plan. The smell of lilies, Lena's favorite flowers, was everywhere. It felt like it was trying to cover up something bad. Then Kai walked in. I felt Lena's fingers squeeze my arm just a little bit. It was tiny, but I saw it. It was a sign I'd missed completely before. The morning after the party, I went to see my father. His office smelled like old paper and leather. The big clock on the wall ticked loud, like it was counting down to something bad. His hands, spotted from age, pushed some papers across the desk. Papers about the family business, about taking control. The first step in their plan. He wanted me to sign papers that would put my rights to the family money into a joint account with Lena. I picked up the pen, the same kind of pen that had signed away everything I had before. I pretended to agree, signing the papers slowly. My father smiled. He smelled like his usual sandalwood soap. He put a hand on my shoulder, proud. He had no idea he was helping them take apart everything he'd built. After that, I had a secret meeting with one of the company lawyers I trusted. We went over the papers I'd just signed. We added new parts to the contract, hidden deep in the complicated legal words, things my father and Lena would never notice, little traps of my own. I drank my tea, feeling a small, cold sense of winning. Outside, rain was running down the window. The first small parts of my plan were starting to fall into place, quiet and unseen. A few days later, Kai texted me. He wanted to meet at the noodle shop we used to go to when we were kids. The windows were always foggy from the steam, and the noise of dishes covered up conversations. It felt like a safe place, a place from our past. He put a hand on my shoulder, pretending to be worried. "Listen, I heard some things," he said, lowering his voice. "About some business guys, rivals. They might be trying to mess up the merger with Lena's family." He used the same fake sincerity, the same lies about protecting me. He made me feel like he was the only one I could trust. I picked up my chopsticks, feeling the cold wood. I kept my face blank, pretending I was worried too. I asked him some simple questions, trying to get him to talk more. The waitress dropped a bowl near us. It crashed on the floor, making a loud noise. It broke the quiet for a second. That was different from the last time. A small change in the picture. I asked him about his recent meetings with Lena. I watched him. Sweat started to show on his forehead, even though it wasn't warm inside. His eyes moved away too fast. I felt a strange sense of success in my chest. I told him I needed to use the bathroom. I left my phone on the table under a napkin, recording everything we were saying. It was something I didn't have last time, my secret witness. "Did you know Miss Jo, Dad's secretary, has been giving him different pills?" I asked my private investigator on the phone later that night. Check into it. She's been with him forever." Lena wasn't from an old, respected family like mine. Her father made his money quickly, using his connections with people in power. Lena wanted into the old families, the ones in Shanghai that everyone looked up to. My family name was her way in. She did her homework before she even met me. She learned what I liked, what I cared about. She read interviews I'd done. She made herself into the perfect girl for me, like she was made just for me. I remember the first time I saw her, at a fancy party for a good cause. She was wearing a dress the exact blue color I'd said I liked in a magazine. She was good at acting like she was strong, but also a little bit helpless. It made me want to protect her, but also admire her. She built a team around me, my sister, my best friend, even Dad's secretary. She promised them different things to get them to help her. Money, position, getting what they wanted. Looking back, I saw the signs. She didn't care about old family things unless they were worth a lot of money. She asked a lot of questions about how the business worked, about the money we had set aside. She called it being interested. I know now she was just checking my pockets. She had a cool, hard way of looking at things behind her warm smile. I found out she kept careful lists of everything I owned, like it was a game. She thought I never saw them. We'd been friends for 20 years, since we were kids in school together, sharing rooms, talking late at night about what we wanted to do when we grew up. Kai felt like the brother I didn't have. But his family's business was failing, slowly, quietly. He spent money like he didn't have a care, fancy watches, fast cars, hiding the fact that they were losing everything. He was really good at agreeing with me, saying what I wanted to hear, but then he'd twist things just a little, make me think about things his way, make me trust him more and more, think others weren't trustworthy. He saved me once from some guys who tried to rob me on the street. I found out later he set the whole thing up, just to make me feel like I owed him, like he was my only protector. He got information from me without me even knowing. When we played basketball, he'd ask about work, about deals we were making. He'd time the questions right when I was focused on the game, not thinking about what I was saying. He and Lena started seeing each other 6 months before I even met her. Their plan to take my money was worked out long before she showed up at that party. The jealousy I saw in his eyes when my father praised me wasn't about friendship. It was about who would get the money, who would have the power. It went deeper than Lena. He wanted what I had because I was born into it. Someone slid a small, folded piece of paper under my office door. It just said, "Stop digging or everyone loses." It felt like a warning, but also a threat. Who else was watching? May was my younger sister. She always felt like she was living in my shadow, the one Dad paid attention to. She felt like I got everything. She was angry about it for a long time. She and Lena became friends. Lena would talk to her late at night, listen to her complain about me, about the family. She made May feel understood. She turned May's old anger into something useful for her plan. There was an old necklace, jade, that belonged to our grandmother. By family rule, it should have gone to May. Lena promised her she could have it once they were successful, once they had my money. It was like buying her loyalty. May was like a spy in my own home. She told Lena and Kai what I was doing, who I was talking to, how I was feeling. Anything that could help them plan their next move. She was still hurt about things that happened when we were kids, especially how our mother always seemed to like me best, the son. I tried to be nice to May, to make up for it, but it just seemed to make things worse. May was actually a really good artist, but Dad didn't care about that. He wanted her to do something that would make money, something serious. Her talent was ignored. Her betrayal wasn't just about being mean, it was about being angry, feeling like she had nothing, and wanting a way out, a way to be seen by the family that she felt invisible to. My father was an old-fashioned man. He believed in family rules, in doing things the way they'd always been done. This made him easy for Lena to fool. She acted like she respected all the old ways, acted like she wanted to be the perfect daughter-in-law. He cared a lot about our family name, about the business going on for generations. He wanted a dynasty. This made him blind. He didn't see that Lena and her father were weak, that they were bringing problems into our strong family. He wasn't healthy, but he hid it. His hands would shake. He'd take pills when he thought no one saw. He didn't want to look weak. He was afraid of the world changing, of the old ways not mattering anymore. That's why he rushed my marriage. He wanted grandchildren, wanted to see the family name continue, Wanted to make sure the future was secure the way he understood it. He had secret meetings with Lena's father. He thought Lena's father's connections in the government would help our business. He thought they could save our traditional company from newer, tougher rivals. He didn't see he was making a deal with people who would use him. He just didn't understand my worries. He thought I was too modern, too suspicious. He trusted people based on how they acted, on promises, on face, not on careful contracts or thinking about what could go wrong. The hard truth was, he loved me. But his love depended on me doing what he expected, being the son he wanted. Lena used this against him. Lena and father started pushing hard. They wanted access to the old family money, the ancestral fund. It was 15 million yuan, tied up until I was married. It was part of the old family rules. The board meeting about the money felt like watching a play I'd seen before. My ideas about being careful with the money were shot down. The older people on the board listened to Lena's father. He talked about making big money, about modern ways to invest. I sat there biting my lip, not saying much. I just nodded along. I knew their plan. They wanted to move the money so they could get their hands on it later. Late at night, I was at my computer. I changed the settings for the online account. Now, to move money, you needed 2 steps to prove it was you. And the second step would only go to my private phone and computer. They wouldn't know. I also put special software on Lena's laptop while she was asleep. It would let me see everything she did on it. She looked so peaceful sleeping, like she didn't have a care in the world. I even caught May on a hidden camera in my study. She was taking a picture of the numbers for my safe, the one where I kept important papers. She looked scared, but determined. The click of her phone camera was loud in the quiet room. I watched, like I was seeing something on a TV screen, as Lena tried to move money 3 times from the joint account. She tried to send it to a company she had overseas, but the secret rules I'd put in place stopped it. They didn't cause a big alarm for her, just little things that seemed like computer errors. But for my private investigator, it sent up red flags. She started getting bad headaches. I saw the bottles of pain medicine start piling up on her nightstand. She was stressed because her plan wasn't working. I kept up my act. I was the caring fiancé. I'd make her ginger tea, ask if she was okay. I even suggested we take a trip somewhere nice and relaxing. It was a trick. I wanted her away from the computers and banks she needed to move the money. All the proof was building up on my private cloud storage. Every time she tried to move money, every secret meeting she had with Kai or her father. It was all there, dated and timed. My silence felt heavier and heavier. I could hear her and Kai arguing in quiet voices in the garden. I'd put small microphones out there among the flowers. Their perfect plan was hitting trouble. I set up a meeting, but made it look like an accident. I met a business contact who used to date Lena, a guy with connections in Macau. We met at a big business event. I saw Kai across the room. He saw me talking to the guy. I could see the anger and worry in his eyes. His calm face broke for a second. I said things just loud enough for Kai to possibly overhear. I heard some interesting stories about money being moved overseas, in places like Macau, I said to the guy. Seems complicated. I watched Kai's face get pale. Later that night, Kai got really angry with Lena. Their quiet talks turned into shouting in the guest bathroom. They were blaming each other. May was confused. The information I was giving her to pass on to Lena was wrong. It didn't match what Lena was seeing. It was like I was in 2 places at once. Their team was starting to break apart. They didn't trust each other anymore. They started thinking the others were hiding things or trying to save themselves. There was a fancy party, a charity auction. In my last life, something happened here that made me look terrible in front of everyone. Lena wanted to use this party again, to show everyone how much control she had over me. She expected me to spend a huge amount of money on a painting she chose, money that would go to her father's company later, through a fake deal with the charity. But I didn't. I stood up and announced I was giving an even bigger amount of money directly to the charity itself, to help them run things. No middleman. No way to get the money back to her father. People gasped. The room went quiet. The smell of the flowers felt too strong. Everyone was looking at Lena and me. Lena's nails dug into my arm. Her smile was frozen on her face. Cameras were flashing, taking pictures of her shocked face. Her father looked furious. His face was red, and I could see a vein pulsing on his head. He was holding a champagne glass so tight I thought it would break. They tried to fix it, talking quickly to people, but it was too late. I had pointed out that the painting's price didn't make sense compared to my direct donation. People started asking questions. I got a text message just before the party. It was from a number I didn't know. It said, "The painting is worth less than half. Check the records." It was the start of someone else helping me. Lena cried later, in the car on the way home. It was the first time I'd seen her really show any feeling. Her makeup was running down her face. She looked like a mess. She demanded to know why I did it. Her careful, perfect act was falling apart because of the pressure. I stayed calm. I just said it was a misunderstanding, that I thought donating directly was better for the charity. I watched her, calculating in her head if she should keep crying or try to pretend again. Kai called late. He needed to see me right away. His voice sounded shaky, stressed. May came to my study trying to be quiet. "Can we talk about Lena?" she asked. It was obvious she was worried and confused about what was happening. My father heard about the problems, the rumors. He didn't understand. He looked tired, older. His health was getting worse under the stress of it all. It was my first big win. Their smooth plan was broken. Now they had to react to what I did, instead of just doing what they planned. Lena tried the same trick again. She said her mother was suddenly very sick. A terrible illness that needed a lot of money right away for special doctors overseas. It was the same story she used last time. It was supposed to make me feel sorry for her and give her money from my personal accounts, money that was safe because of the wedding contract. We went to the hospital. Her mother was good at acting. She looked pale and weak under the bright lights. The hospital smelled clean, like chemicals. I held Lena's hand. It was trembling. I remembered how easily I'd believed this lie before. I told her I would help, that we'd get her mother the best care. As soon as I left the room, I called my investigator. I told him to watch everything, to check if her mother was really sick. I even got a special doctor to go see her mother, someone I knew I could trust. I told Lena he was the best, but really he was there to check the medical records, to see if the illness was real. I sent them money, a lot of it. But I sent it to an account that needed 2 people to say okay before any money could be taken out. Me and the doctor I'd sent. Another trap. I told Kai some made-up information. I said I heard a rich guy from another country was thinking about buying a lot of my shares in the company. I made it sound like I wasn't sure what to do. Maybe I'd sell. We played basketball. He was more aggressive than usual. The squeak of our shoes on the court matched the fast beat of my heart. He seemed desperate. I pretended to be tired of everything. Tired of the family business, of the rules. I hinted that maybe I wanted to just get away from it all. We drank cold beer afterwards. The water ran down the sides of the bottles onto my hands. I told him just enough to make him believe my story. I left some papers in his car by accident. Papers about this fake investor. I had put a tracker on them. Late that night, my phone buzzed. He was looking at the files. A few minutes later, he sent copies to Lena and her father. Just like I knew he would. My investigator found out father's doctor had given copies of his medical files to someone who claimed to be a family member. They were building a case for why I wasn't fit to take over if father became too ill. I went to May. I didn't try to trick her. I gave her the jade pendant, grandmother's necklace, the one she always wanted. I just gave it to her. She held the necklace. Sunlight hit the green stone, making it seem to glow. I saw the fight in her eyes. She wanted it, but she knew what she had done with Lena. I talked about her art. I said I was thinking about starting something to help young artists. Maybe call it the May Chen Arts Foundation, a place for artists to get money and help. The dream Dad always laughed at. She looked at her phone. Messages from Lena were coming in, one after another. May didn't answer them right away. She hugged me. The first real hug in years. She smelled like the same perfume she wore as a girl. Vanilla and sandalwood. My cameras confirmed it. She met Lena at midnight. She was torn. Loyal to Lena who had used her, or loyal to me who was suddenly offering her everything she ever wanted. For real. My first real victory with her. She started giving Lena information, but it wasn't the full truth. She was protecting me, just a little. The papers for the merger. Lena and Kai were rushing to get them signed. It was their last big chance to get what they wanted. The contract was almost the same as the one that ruined me before. The signing party was planned to be big. Lots of people, cameras, reporters. They wanted it public so I couldn't back out or change anything at the last minute. I pretended to agree to everything. I even said signing on a certain day, and time would be lucky, according to old beliefs. But my lawyers were working hard, all night. They were finding all the hidden problems in the contract, the parts that were traps. They made new papers. They looked exactly the same as Lena's, but they had tiny differences, words changed here and there, hidden rules that would protect me and expose them. I held the new papers during a practice signing. They felt heavy. I practiced signing my name with the same confident sweep I always used, the one they expected to see before my downfall. The signing party. Flashing lights. Important people watching. They all thought they were seeing the end of my story, my family losing control. Lena was there. She looked beautiful, wearing a red dress that's supposed to bring good luck in business. She tried to look calm and happy. Then, at the right moment, during the tea service, when everyone was a little distracted, my assistant made the switch. He put the new papers in place of the ones Lena had prepared. Kai started talking, explaining the contract. He sounded confident, like he had already won. He didn't know the papers under his hand were different. I stepped forward. I took the contract and started reading out loud. Not the normal part, the part I had added. The part that talked about their plan to take the money illegally. The room went completely silent. You could hear people gasp. Glasses stopped in mid-air. Everyone just froze, watching. Lena's father shouted and tried to get to me. His own people had to hold him back. Reporters were taking pictures of him, red-faced and out of control. Just before the signing, I got a call from a blocked number. A woman's voice, calm and old, just said, "The key is in the lion's mouth," and hung up. It didn't make sense until later. Lena made one last try. She was desperate. She spread fake pictures and stories online, saying I was seeing other women, that I was cheating. It blew up fast. Everyone was talking about it. My family name was everywhere on social media, in the news. It felt exactly like before. It hurt, seeing the lies spread. It brought back the feeling of being crushed, but I was ready. I looked at the news stories on my phone while I ate breakfast. Lena watched me, trying to see if I was upset. I didn't show anything. I hit a button on my phone. It started my plan to fight back. I released proof. Videos from cameras, messages with times and dates, showing exactly where I was when they said I was somewhere else. It all had special digital codes that proved it was real and not changed. I had lawyers deliver papers to Lena's family lawyer while we were still having breakfast. Papers saying I was suing them for lying about me and trying to hurt my business. My father had a heart attack after he saw the fake pictures online. Just like before. It was the same kind of stress that had made him weak last time. I stayed in the hospital room with him. The machines beeped softly. I watched the line on the screen showing his heartbeat. While I was there, Kai and Lena's father tried to take over the company. They said father was too sick to run things, and they needed to step in right away. It was the same plan they used before when I was too upset to fight back. They called a meeting of the company board without telling everyone properly. My lawyers wrote down every rule they broke. I showed up at the meeting just as they were starting to vote. I walked in the door, and everyone stopped talking. They looked surprised and scared. I gave everyone on the board a file. It was full of proof, everything they had done. The lies, the plans to steal, the illegal things. It showed everything. The security guards I'd brought with me quietly took Kai away. He was yelling, trying to say it wasn't fair, but no one listened. Checking a stone lion statue outside the old family bank building, the one I'd passed that morning, I found a key taped inside its mouth. It was the key to a safety deposit box Lena kept hidden. May came to the hospital. Father was still weak. She cried and told me everything. It all came out. She talked about being angry for years, about feeling like I was the only one who mattered. She cried about Mom, about Dad not caring about her art. Her pain was real. I gave her a big envelope. Inside were papers for the art foundation I had set up. It was real. It was for her. She looked confused. She didn't expect it. She expected me to be angry. She realized my revenge wasn't just about hurting people, it was about giving her what she needed. My father held my hand. It was weak. He looked at me and finally understood. He saw how badly he'd been fooled. He took off the ring he wore, our grandmother's ring. He put it in my hand. "Find someone worthy," he whispered. The ring felt heavy. It felt like he was passing something on to me. Not just the ring, but something more. Something about who we are. All the proof, the papers, the videos, the bank records, was given to the government people who deal with money crimes. They had to start looking into Lena's family now. There was too much proof. News about it spread everywhere. Their company's stock price fell really fast. All the illegal things they'd done for years were finally out in the open. Kai called me from the airport. He was trying to leave the country, but my network had told the police, and they stopped him before he could get on the plane. The wedding contract. It had a rule I'd added. If Lena or her family did anything illegal or tried to hurt me or the family business, the contract meant nothing. All her claims to my money were gone. Lena came to the apartment. It was mine now, legally. The locks were changed. Her things were in boxes in the hallway. It was raining hard. The rain soaked her clothes as she banged on the door. Her makeup was running down her face. For the first time, she wasn't acting. She was really falling apart. I watched her on the security camera. Every time she knocked, every time she cried, the heavy feeling from my last life, the pain, started to fade away. I got a text message one day. Just a few words. "Old tea house, quiet place. She is waiting." It told me where to go, a part of the city I hadn't been to in forever. It was old, small streets, buildings that looked like they'd been there for hundreds of years. I walked into the tea house. It smelled like old wood and flowers, a sweet, warm smell. There was an old woman sitting at a table in the corner. She was old, but she sat up straight, like a queen. She had her hands around a small teacup. I froze. It was my grandmother, my mother's mother. Everyone thought she had died 15 years ago. She looked at me and smiled a little. "Hello, grandson," she said. She told me she hadn't died. It was a plan to protect the real family money, the real power from my father. He was good, but he took too many risks. And she saw people like Lena's family coming. She had built her own world, not in the public eye, hidden. She owned parts of new technology companies, buildings in other countries, pieces of businesses that were just starting. She had people everywhere, loyal people. In my father's company, in Lena's father's business, even people who worked in my own house. They told her everything. She slid a small, flat thing across the table. It was a computer chip. "Everything you need," she said, "to finish it." She smiled again. It was a strange smile. "Dying changes things, doesn't it?" she said. "Your accident. It wasn't just bad luck." Then she told me the most shocking thing. She had made me come back. It was an old family secret. A way to bring someone back after they died. To help the family. To fix things. I went back to my apartment. Zhang Wei, my driver, was there. I thought he just drove me around. But he was taking out cameras that Lena had put in my walls. He wasn't slow or quiet anymore. He moved fast, like a soldier. He showed me a room behind the wall in my library. It wasn't just a room, it was like a control center. Computers, big screens, showing information about everything. It was watching everyone involved in their plan. This was the team grandmother had built. People who were experts. They could find money no matter where it was hidden. They could get into any computer system. They knew all the laws, all the ways to use them. Wei was in charge of them, and they all worked for me now. They had collected everything. Every single talk, every meeting, every money transfer. It was all there, saved and organized. It was so much more than I found on my own. Wei told me about Lena's family. They weren't just trying to get my money. They were part of a much bigger world of crime. Moving money for dangerous people in other countries. Using my father's company to hide where the money came from. The government in different countries were already watching Lena's family. My actions had just sped things up. It would bring down a lot of powerful, bad people in Shanghai. Now I had to choose. Let the government take care of it all, exposing everything, or keep some things quiet, maybe protect my father more. Justice, or a kind of controlled ending? The choice was huge. It wasn't just about me anymore. Grandmother's home was up in the mountains, hidden away. It was a mix of very old buildings and new secret technology. You couldn't see it from the air. You couldn't get close without being seen. Inside, there was a very old shrine. Candles were always burning there. The smoke went up towards the wooden roof, carved with old pictures. It felt like a sacred place. Grandmother unrolled an old paper scroll. It was the family tree. It didn't just show names. It showed that our family had been important advisors to leaders a long, long time ago. Our family's power wasn't just money. It was knowing how to guide things from the shadows. The secret was tied to this. Every few generations, someone was chosen. They died young. Then they came back. They brought back what they learned. It helped the family stay strong, to keep their influence, to fix problems. That was me. Grandmother made tea over a small fire. The plants she used only grew there. The tea was bitter. When I drank it, I suddenly saw things. Flashes of other lives. Different people, different times. But I felt like it was me, in some way. Looking at the old pictures on the walls, I knew the faces. People I'd never met but felt like I'd always known. The weight of this history, this secret, felt very heavy. My engagement to Lena. It wasn't just bad luck. Grandmother told me it was a test to see if I could see the truth, if I was strong enough, smart enough, to handle the family's real power. There was a bigger plan. Other powerful people wanted what my family had. They used Lena's family to try and get it. I stood in front of the family council. They were the elders, the real power. I'd never seen them before this life, but I knew who they were. Their faces were serious, old like the stone in the room. They had shaped the world for centuries, from the dark. They said I had passed the test. They bowed to me. People who controlled huge businesses and governments, bowing to me. They gave me a choice. I could join them, take my place, control money and power from the shadows, like our family always had. Or I could walk away. I would have a lot of money, enough to live any way I wanted, anywhere, but I would be separate from the family's real power. There were 2 papers in a red envelope, one to accept my place, my power, my duty, one to be free of it all, forever. I remembered dying. Now I knew why. It wasn't a mistake. It was planned. I had failed the test before. I didn't see the manipulation. I died and came back to try again. If I said yes, I would be like them. I would have to watch future generations, test them, maybe even do the same thing to someone else. I would be the one pulling the strings. It was a huge weight. This family history, this duty, against being a normal person finding my own happiness. The golden cage of power versus being free. Grandmother put her hand on mine. "Choose carefully," she said. Her voice was quiet, but strong. Gold cages are still cages. I smelled the old incense burning. I broke the wax seal on the paper I chose. The elders watched me, waiting. My choice wasn't just about my life. It was about the future of this old, powerful family. I went back to Shanghai. I wasn't weak anymore. I had the family's full power and money behind me. I was no longer the one being hunted. Lena's father's company building, glass and steel, showing off their wealth. Now, police and government cars were everywhere. The room where they planned to take everything from me. Now it was where they would lose everything. Security brought Lena in. She looked shocked, like she couldn't believe this was happening. Her nice clothes looked out of place on her pale, tired face. Kai was there too. He was begging, offering to tell the police about Lena's family, hoping to save himself. May wasn't there. She was already on a plane to Paris, starting her new life with the money for the Art Foundation. My one act of kindness. My father was there. He looked old and tired. He sat quietly, facing what was happening because he trusted the wrong people. They showed the proof on screens in the room. Everything. It was clear. No one could say it wasn't true. Then Lena saw Grandmother sitting next to me. Her face changed. She understood. She wasn't the smart planner she thought she was. She was just a small part of a much bigger game, a game she didn't even know existed. I told them what would happen. They could work with the police, tell the truth, and face less punishment. Or they could fight, and I would use everything I had to destroy them completely, slowly, and publicly. It wasn't about being angry anymore. It was like cleaning up a mess. I told Lena what I wanted. The one wish. For saving Kai from the worst of it, because grandmother wanted to keep the family's involvement quiet. I wanted our engagement officially ended. And I wanted a public statement saying my family had nothing to do with their illegal business, that the problems were all because of her father. I saw a flicker of relief in her eyes. Even through all the fear and despair, I was giving her a way out, a way to disappear quietly instead of being completely ruined in front of the world. We met at the fancy restaurant where we first celebrated getting engaged. It was empty now, quiet. Rain was running down the big windows looking out at the city lights. Lena looked like she did on our first date. The same dress, her hair the same way, the same perfume. She was trying to make me remember the past. She put a small velvet box on the table. Inside was a piece of old jade from her family. She said it was worth more than anything. She was trying to show me she was serious. She talked about being young, making mistakes, being used by her father and Kai. Tears rolled down her face at the right times, catching the light from the candle on the table. It was a practiced act. Her hand shook as she reached for mine. "We can start over," she said. "Pretend none of this happened. Just us. No lies this time." She offered me things. Her family's connections, still useful even after the problems, to help fix my father's name. She talked about us, about getting married, having children, continuing my family line. Everything she knew I once wanted. I smelled her fear, her desperation, under her perfume. She could see I wasn't reacting the way she expected. Then she got out of her chair and fell to her knees beside me. A big show, trying to make me feel sorry for her. It would have worked before. I just took a slow sip of my tea. The cup was warm in my hands. I looked at her, kneeling there in her expensive dress, and I just said no. Her face froze. Pure shock. It was the first time I'd seen her surprised, in a real way. She didn't know what to do next. The waiter showed up quietly with my coat. It was time to leave. I walked away, leaving her kneeling there, alone in the empty restaurant. I went to the basketball court where we grew up. The metal nets made a sad sound in the wind. Kai was already there. He was trying to look casual, throwing the ball up and catching it. But his eyes were full of worry. He started talking about when we were kids, the fun we had, the promises we made to each other. He talked about being like brothers. He told me his side, how his family lost all their money, how Lena's father found out something bad about his own dad and said he would tell everyone if Kai didn't help them. He said he was forced into it. They had pictures of my father with his mistress, he said, his voice rough. They would have destroyed him. He threw the ball to me. I caught it without thinking, just from old habit. We got cold beers. He gave me papers he had signed, saying Lena's family was behind everything, making himself look less guilty. He said he would tell the government everything, whatever I needed him to say. "Just let me make things right," he begged. He tried to hug me, like we used to after a tough game. I smelled our past on him. I dropped the ball. It bounced away. I stepped back from him. "No," I said. I turned and walked off the court. Some things can't be fixed. I heard him fall to the ground behind me. Then I heard him start crying. Really crying. Not faking it. He had old photo albums open on his bed. Pictures of our family going back many years. People who kept the family going through wars and hard times. He pointed to a picture of my great-grandfather. His brother did something terrible, he said. But he forgave him, for the family. He talked about our family's old rules, about keeping things peaceful, about how it was better to make up than to fight. He said that if I kept going after Lena's family, it would hurt our business, hurt the deals we had with other people for a long time. He talked about our name, our history. If we're not together, everything they built will fall apart, he said. Is being right more important than our family? He started crying. His tears were real. He looked at the pictures, remembering. He was trying to make me feel guilty, like I was hurting the family by wanting justice. The air in the room felt heavy. Heavy with medicine smell and the feeling that I had to do what he wanted. I gently closed the album. I put it back on his table. "The family is strong enough to handle the truth, Father," I said. My voice was steady. "But it can't handle lies forever." He looked at me for a long time. He saw something in my eyes, something old. He understood I had made my choice. He nodded slowly. "Then," he said softly, "you are truly your grandmother's grandson." I live in a small village by the sea now, far away from the tall buildings and the complicated world of Shanghai. Fishing boats are in the water when the sun sets. I eat breakfast on my small balcony, fruit and bread from the village shops. The air smells like the ocean. It blows away the steam from my coffee. My decision feels right. It's comfortable. I didn't take the big power, but I didn't cut myself off completely either. I found a way in the middle. I'm still connected to grandmother and the family's resources, but I won't do the things they do. The controlling, the planning other people's lives. I checked my tablet. May's art show in Paris got great reviews. People like her work. She's making it on her own. I see news about the police still looking into Lena's family business. It's happening without me needing to do anything every day. I'm writing a book. It's a story about a family, based on mine, but changed enough to be fiction. The truth is hidden inside the story. There's a family in the village, fishermen. They invite me to eat with them sometimes. They talk about the weather, about the fish they caught. Simple, real talks. Not about money or power. Every day I feel lighter, like a heavy weight is being lifted. It feels good to not be planning, not be watching, not be in a fight. One morning, it was misty. I heard a knock at my door. Grandmother was standing there. I hadn't seen her in months. She looked around my small place. She seemed happy with it. "You chose wisely," she said, "to have wisdom instead of just power. It's rare for us." She took out an old tea set from her bag. It felt special, important. Making the tea was like a ceremony, like something was ending and something else was starting. Her hands were steady as she poured the tea. "The family council understands," she said. "You will not lead, but you will advise. You will not control, but you will protect." Things felt different between us. She didn't expect things from me like before. There was respect, understanding. She told me that in every generation, someone like me chooses this path. To go back to a simpler way. To find balance. "Your mother did too," she said quietly. "That's why we brought her to your father. To bring balance. To keep us strong, not just powerful." She left a list for me. Names. People like me. Living quiet lives in different places. If I ever felt alone, if I needed someone who understood. After she left, the air still smelled like her. Like jasmine and old paper and a deep, quiet knowing. I bought a small boat. I'm learning how to sail it, how to read the water. It feels like real freedom. I go to the market in the village. No one knows who my family is. People talk to me because of who I am right now, not because of a name or money. I still have my laptop. I check the family investments sometimes, just enough to make sure things are still being done the right way, like I promised grandmother. I talk to Wei sometimes, but not often. I tell him just a little bit, guiding the network of people grandmother showed me, making sure they do things ethically, not like before. Talking to my father is getting better. Slowly. He respects my choice now. Maybe he even understands it a little. The legal paper came 6 months after everything ended, from Lena's lawyers. It said our engagement was officially over. It was the last thing from that time, the last piece of the wish coming true. I heard Kai got a job in another country. He's living there now. Not in jail, but not living the big life he wanted either. A kind of punishment. May writes to me. Her letters are getting more open, more real. Being away from the family seems to be helping her find herself. I wear grandmother's jade ring now, on a chain around my neck. It reminds me where I come from, but it doesn't feel like a heavy duty anymore. The woman who sells flowers at the market. She smiles when she sees me. Her smile is just a smile. We talk about the flowers, about the day. We started spending more time together. Morning coffee turned into walks by the sea. We just talk about simple things. Slowly, my heart is opening up again. Trusting people. It's scary, but it feels right. Trusting without looking for a trick, without waiting for something bad to happen. I finally know. Surviving wasn't the point. Living is. The sun was going down. It made the water look gold. I turned my small boat back towards the village harbor. A new start.